All right, welcome to lesson 4.1, part 1. It's the first in our unit 4. It's pairs of lines and angles. So we'll be talking about some things that you've heard before, like parallel and perpendicular, but kind of extending that knowledge into the geometric level, but further than you've done before. If you learned anything from last unit, okay, it's that you need to know your vocabulary, right? And there's a lot of vocabulary in geometry to know and understand. And you don't have to have it all memorized, but you need to make sure that you're going back and looking up the words that you don't understand. Because the better you understand the words that you're reading in your problems or in your notes, the better you'll understand what it is that we're doing with a particular figure or an activity or an assignment. So make sure you're knowing your vocabulary, and that's a lot of what we'll look at in this first section of this first lesson is vocabulary. Like if you look in your notes, the first part is a review. It's a review of what vertical angles are and what a linear pair is. So in this it says you've got two parallel lines, right, where you see those red arrows. That indicates that those two are parallel to each other, that are intersected by a transversal. And we'll clarify more of what a transversal is in the next lesson, but it just means this line that's crossing these two parallel lines. And so for identifying all the pair of vertical angles, remember, vertical angles are formed when two lines are crossing, two straight lines are crossing, and they're formed by two pairs of opposite rays. So like angles 1 and angles 3 here are vertical to each other. Okay? Angles 2 and 4 are vertical to each other. 5 and 7 and 6 and 8. Okay, so those are vertical angles. You go back to our first unit to make sure you know what those are. And what a linear pair is. A linear pair is when two angles on the same, they're on the same line with a common ray in the middle, and the two angles form a straight line with that common ray in the middle. And we also know that they're supplementary. Their measurements add up to 180 degrees. So 1 and 2 form a linear pair. Okay, they're on a straight line with a common ray in the middle. 3 and 4. 5 and 6, 7, 8, those are all linear pairs. But also 1 and 4, and 2 and 3, and 5 and 8, and 6 and 7. Okay? Your note page should show you all of those. But again, just reviewing what's a vertical angle, what's a linear pair. Again, showing you need to know the vocabulary to understand what it is we're doing here. So some of the new vocabulary you'll want to know for this unit is parallel lines, intersecting lines, and coincident lines. Okay. Parallel lines, as I'm sure you know or have heard before, is just two lines that don't cross. They don't have any points in common. Okay. And so this is what parallel lines would look like. And often when we're looking at figures that are parallel lines, you'll see little arrows. Sometimes they're red, sometimes they're, if it's in black and white, you can't tell. But you'll see these little arrows on here to indicate that those two lines in particular are parallel to each other. Okay, you'll see little arrows on the lines there. So parallel lines don't ever cross, they have no points in common. Intersecting lines have exactly 1 point in common, so they cross just at that 1 point. In coincident lines, if you see, I just see one line, okay, where's the other line? Well, coincident lines have all of their points in common, and so they're actually the same line. And we just call those coincident lines because they're actually the same line with all of their points in common. So a few terms you need to know there. A couple more. Another one is skew lines. Skew lines, this might be a new one, are lines that don't intersect, okay, and are not coplanar. So with parallel lines, they don't intersect, but they're coplanar. They're still on the same plane. So if I had this line in here, and if I had another line kind of going in the same direction on plane A, kind of just over here off to the side, kind of similar to line in, those would be parallel to each other because they're on the same plane. But because P is passing through this plane, it's not actually on the plane, okay, it's just going through this plane, it's on a different plane. So that is not coplanar to N. Remember, coplanar means they're on the same plane. And so P is on a different plane than N, and they're not intersecting each other. And remember, if we see that dotted line, it's going through the plane. And so we would say that N and P are skew here because they're not intersecting and they're not on the same plane. Also, we have perpendicular lines. Hey, you've worked with these a little bit before too. These are two lines that intersect to form a right angle. Okay, so we have line L and line M here, and they're intersecting at one point to form a right angle, and we denote that with this red box here. Okay. So if we see this red box on a figure, that we know that these two lines are forming that right angle, and so they're perpendicular to each other. Again, so those are some important vocabulary terms that you want to know here in this first section. All right, let's do a few examples here where we're working with these terms: parallel, perpendicular, skew, intersecting, coincidence. Let's do a few examples where we're looking at those. And remember, a lot of this we've talked about before, where you're really trying to understand what's going on in a particular figure or diagram. How do we read and understand that? Because what we're doing is, in geometry, we're trying to understand how do we look at the world in terms of shapes and figures in space. And so that's what we're doing. We're looking at this figure here, this cube, and trying to make sense of what's going on with it. So the first question says, it says, think of each segment in the figure as part of a line. Okay, so each of those segments is part of a line. Which lines or planes appear to fit the descriptions below? So number one, it talks about a line that's parallel to line CD and containing point A. So looking in my figure here, what is a line that's parallel to CD, which is right here, and contains point A? So there are multiple lines in this figure that contain point A: AH, AG, DA, AB. Multiple lines that contain point A. But which of those are particularly, or specifically rather, parallel to CD? Well, if I look for lines that are parallel to CD, where they won't cross, they're in the same plane, and they don't have any points in common, and they will not intersect. That's AB right here. Okay. So AB is parallel to line CD. Okay? So line AB is parallel to CD and contains point A. Okay? So again, we're just trying to understand, how do we make sense of what's going on in this figure. One thing I do want to note is, and it's in your notes, but I just want to make sure you're paying attention to it. When we use this double line symbol, that is the symbol for parallel. So I would read this statement as line AB is parallel to line CD. When you see these double lines, that means parallel. All right, so lines, next we're going to find a line that's skew to and contains point A. Okay? Or you can't see it on, you can't see it on, it's not in your notes. Unfortunately, it didn't show up. But we're looking for a line that's skew to CD. Okay? It's skew to CD and contains point A. So again, we're looking at line CD and looking for a line that's skew to it. So remember, skew means it's not going to intersect, but it's also not in the same plane. Okay? So there are, again, multiple lines that are not in the same plane as CD. Okay? But which ones are not skewed to it? Or which ones are skewed to it? So if we look at AG, AG is not in the same plane. AG is over here. CD is over here on a different plane. And so line AG is parallel. AG is parallel to, or not parallel, skewed to line CD. And then also we can see AH here. Okay? AH is in a different plane, and it's skewed. It's not going to intersect. If I extend these out, they're not going to intersect. Obviously, in the two-dimensional, they look like they are going to intersect if I extend them out like that. But you have to imagine it three-dimensionally. AH is going to continue to go up and up. CD is going like that, but they're not ever actually intersecting. Okay? And so line AG is skew, and line AH is skew to CD. And we don't have a special symbol for that. We just write they're skewed to each other. Number three, lines that are perpendicular to CD and line CD and contain point A. All right, so looking for lines that are perpendicular to CD. okay, and contain point A. Well, I can see that like DE is perpendicular, CF is perpendicular, CB is perpendicular to CD, um, but which I guess I actually don't know that for sure because there isn't a little red box right there. Yeah, so I can't necessarily say that for sure. But I do know for sure that AD is, okay, because I see this perpendicular, this right angle red box. So I know that AD is perpendicular to CD. Okay. AD is perpendicular to CD. Again, I see that they're intersecting at one point, and I see this right angle symbol right here. So I know they're perpendicular. And remember that symbol, here I'll clean this up for you if you're not sure what I'm writing here. AD, and I'm writing that line symbol above, is perpendicular to line CD. And remember this symbol means perpendicular to. All right, number 4. Planes parallel to plane EFG and containing point A. Okay, so remember a plane, is the whole side here, and we use 3 letters to denote a plane. So EFG is down here. Okay, that's this plane down here, and looking for a plane that's parallel to it and contains point A. Remember, parallel, they wouldn't intersect. Okay, so this is a little bit easier to see because on a cube we can kind of see easier what's intersecting. So like this part's intersecting, this part's intersecting, this part over here is intersecting, okay, this whole thing's intersecting. So the only plane that's not going to intersect EFG is right here up at the top, right? So that's a parallel plane to EFG, and it also contains point A. So we know that one's right. So plane EFG, call ABC. Okay, so remember, use 3 letters to denote a plane, and so plane ABC up here is parallel to plane EFG. And you could use the same symbol, parallel. Use the same parallel symbol. So again, what we're trying to do is just making sure that we're kind of developing our skills of identifying from a figure or a diagram what's parallel, what's perpendicular, what's skew.